Good afternoon, everyone, and I say hi to India. We're Rainer and Hannes from GNSS Asia, and we're speaking to you from Brussels and Munich. Some of you may have joined us early this afternoon for a webinar on the technical aspects of using satellite navigation and Galileo. Well, now we'll talk about the other side of things. You might be able to use it, but the question is how to make a commercially viable application out of it, or even a business. I'm pleased to introduce you to Rainer Hohr, who is our global coordinator of the GNSS Asia project. He's also managing partner of Space Tech Partners, who's a consulting firm based in Europe, which is very active on innovation, accelerators, and the mentorship of startups. Rainer, the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you, Hannes. Thank you for organizing it. Thank you, GNSS Asia India team, and very welcome everybody from India, all the future participants of the Galileo Hackathon, which we'll have in 10 days or something in Bangalore. I'll be there personally. I'm taking off tonight, going via Japan to India. Let me introduce a little bit who I am, so that you have a bit of a background. Here we go. So I'm an entrepreneur. I built a business from scratch, consulting business with 20 professionals. And I've been working with Asia Pacific for the last 25 years even by now, and running GNSS Asia project, where you will learn a lot more about since 2012. So what is happening in India? Why are we talking about this? Oops, sorry. I mean, you know yourself how fast your country is growing, faster than the world average, and you have a very young population and a substantial challenge of urbanization still happening there. I think that is intriguing, that is challenging, but that also creates business opportunities for young entrepreneurs like yourself. So, looks like my mouse doesn't work. Sorry. So we see big initiatives from the government-driven smart cities, but also we see activities happening on the consumer front. More and more digitalization, more and more penetration of smartphones, even into the poorer parts of the population. And you see how India, as one of the most important markets for smartphones, is growing. This is just an example. But you can also see here, when we do GNSS, when we do Galileo-related things, we have to look at other smartphones available. And you can see here which big brands have made their way into it and how changes are happening between them. And you see increasingly phones coming in which are higher in value, who have the latest functionality. And we will see in 2-3 years all the Galileo features and the advanced features permeating and getting into the budget phones as well, as the chips, the multi-constellation chips, will be built into also the more affordable models. We're also in India. We're also visiting India because this is really intriguing here. Because in India you have different needs. Creating innovative solutions, and that's where we want to engage with you and to learn how the world is using Galileo, what ideas there are from the young generation there. This is an example built by an entrepreneur in Bangalore, a company called Northstar. The CEO will be around and will be available as a mentor during the hackathon. So they are providing child security on the road to private schools, where the child can be tracked by the mother or by the babysitter at home, and so the child can be picked up from the bus and doesn't have to wait outside. So end-to-end child safety, so to speak. And we hear that more and more states are looking into making this a mandatory solution, or solutions like this mandatory for bus travel for children. So it will be interesting to discuss with you how you see this happening, how much of it is government announcement, but definitely, as you see, some of the challenges in the webinar are going in directions like this, and we look forward to discuss and engage with you. So now, this is the intro. I would now like to give you a mini lecture, but also invite you to raise your hand virtually through this thing, ask questions if you don't understand anything. So I have 4 chapters prepared. One is to introduce again the challenge to the webinar. And Hannes, please tell me if that has been addressed in the previous webinar, then we can jump across it.
This has been discussed indeed.
Okay, then we'll do this very fast. The introduction to GNSS business in general, B2B models, B2C models, but also giving you some hints and some help for the work that you're doing in the Idea Hackathon. You will be working on concepts, high-level concepts of a business plan. You might be looking into how to describe your idea, but also how to look at where can you really add value, and we'll discuss that as well. So let's quickly look into the challenge. So the challenge has been discussed. It's about urban mobility, smart city solutions. And of course, the idea is that the Galileo signal plays a certain role in this. Let me just see where this goes. Now I have it. Okay, now the mouse. So you see here what we use as award criteria as evaluators afterwards, and what type of things you should consider in your work. And to make that happen, a few ideas on the right-hand side, what you might want to address, and as part of your presentation that you have to deliver at the end of the hackathon. At least some of these elements might be helpful to explain why is it innovative, how do you intend to make money, and first and foremost, which problem are you going to solve? Much of this technology, much of these words here might be new terminology for you. And this mini lecture is intended to give you a bit more comfort of addressing these topics. Business is not black and white like an experiment in a lab, which works or doesn't work, a theory that is proven or disproven. But there's a lot of gray area in between, a lot of qualitative things. So have a look at this exercise and this whole challenge also in terms of building your personal skills in interacting with people, interacting with peers that are maybe not necessarily from your own background, interacting with individuals who have business experience, who have different types of experience, and thereby furthering your own skills through this exercise. So we will now take in turn some of these aspects on the right-hand side, some of the yellow boxes, and explain them in certain context. Let's first talk about the GNSS business. We have a number of macro trends affecting the GNSS. So you might be looking at topics for your smart city, societal challenge solutions that are going with left and right, leveraging other supplementary technologies or technology trends that are happening. But keep in mind, technology as such is not the solution. You first need to see what problem are you going to solve and for whom, and is there somebody going to pay for it? Or at least, is there a way for you to get your efforts reimbursed or monetized and hopefully make some money with it? So this chart is from the latest market report from GSA, which probably has been referenced before. At the end of the presentation, we will also have the link and we'll share it with you afterwards. Going a little bit about what is Galileo doing for smart cities and for other applications. It's first and foremost an enabler of digitalization. It will help making healthcare, utilities, retail, industry, whatever, more efficient, more economical. It might make things possible that have not been done before. But always keep in mind, if you're addressing a problem, try to find the real life current proxy of that problem, because people have other more analog or non-technical ways to possibly addressing the problem. And you might overcome, it's just like with online payment, you're overcoming cash cash has been used before, the cash business and cash transfers and lending and so forth. But it's not that people haven't been trading before. It might be a means to trade things faster than before because no physical money has to move from one end to the other. Equally, it goes here if positioning is done faster, if a timing signal can be used, and so forth. Moving forward, the navigation system, Galileo, which we are helping to promote in a multi-GNSS context, is ready to use. Today, already 600 million Galileo-enabled smartphones are on this planet. They tend to be a bit more the upmarket models at the moment, but those are going to permeate into more affordable ones. And I think that's an aspect that you need to consider in your business plan, knowing that in India, probably a very high percentage is budget rather simple phones being used, not using broadband behind the things, but there might be even applications that are not using broadband, that are just using SMS or some basic communication feature. So you can see here the companies and brands that already incorporate Galileo. And if you want to know if your specific phone or the phone that you think is very relevant for what you're doing, or the device, the fitness device or something else, check out usegalileo.eu and you can make that happen. Here are some examples of some of the recent, more upmarket models that are using even the latest feature, the dual frequency feature of Galileo. And last week there was the Mobile World Congress, and the Xiaomi 9 was launched there. And also this one has dual frequency using a chip from a different supplier, Qualcomm, not Broadcom. So it tells you two of the 3-4 major chip makers in the world have now already dual frequency chips in their offering. So we can see things are progressing very, very fast. Things are progressing so fast that probably the tracking and the market description can hardly keep track of it. We have here the market report of GNSS built by the Galileo marketing agency, the GSA. And you have also the user technology report. You have probably heard Martin talking earlier on the previous webinar. He's the principal author of this report. So you will learn more about these things at the webinar, but I would like to encourage you to possibly download both documents free of charge so that you have the right terminology and you can maybe get ahead of the curve and get ahead of your competitors in the hackathon. As an example, what the market report brings, you have here a snapshot talking about various trends and elements feeding into LBS service, how many apps are in the stores, how many of them are navigation enabled, and so forth. It also gives all kinds of market data by geography. You see here Asia Pacific is in this one not broken down. There are other charts which break it down to some of the larger countries. So I'd like to invite you to have a look at these things and prepare yourself for your hackathon. Maybe I'll pause here for a minute and ask if there are any questions. No?
Doesn't look like it, so feel free to keep going.
Okay, so in the next part, I'd like to give you an overview of business concepts and business terminology that is being used in the context of business planning and how startups tend to talk about their business and describe it in simple ways, so that it's kind of a common way of exciting an investor or a business partner about what you do and how you do it. So maybe have a look at this inventor. I guess the picture says what he invented. Maybe that is in many parts of the world increasingly history, because more electricity efficient solutions are available than the light bulb. But even back then, when he was active 150 years ago, he had the problem-solving approach first. So he didn't invent technology for the sake of it. He first looked at what does the world need, and then proceed to invent and commercialize. Yeah. So okay, he had then a technical solution, but I'm sure he also had the business in mind. He had a bigger business in mind than some other great inventors. The founder of IBM, who said there's maybe the need for 3 or 4 computers in the world. I think he was proven wrong. We've got at least 1 computer in our own pocket every day. So let me build up this slide very quickly. It outlines some of the questions that you would address to understand who is the customer, who is the user. Of course, that's the first thing you need to find yourself, and who is going to be a possible paying customer. A user is not a customer, because a user might be different, especially if you're in a business-to-business context. If you're trying to solve a business problem, or you try to sell something to a corporation or to an institution, the user and the buyer might be very different people. So you have to have different arguments why they should be buying it. So now, in any case, the mere core that you need, to the very least, is describing your business model. What are you doing? Are you trying to sell a hardware product? Are you selling a software license? Are you selling your app software license as a freebie? Are you financing it by advertising? Are you doing a freemium model or a premium model? Is it recurring? Is it lifetime? Whatever. Yeah. So I'm sure you have seen these things in the various apps that you have on your smartphones, but think of those type of elements as basic forms of business models. Also, how do you intend to make money? What are the sources of income? Is the money, is the money being paid directly? Is it paid indirectly? Are there interim channel partners who are going to have a cut? Is there a big retail chain that is going to distribute your product? So you probably see that what you can sell them is only half the amount that they sell it to. You have to think of what is the sales price, and there might be a tax on top of that. And of course, what's the value proposition? What is it really that the customer has as a benefit out of it? Is that $10 you're asking from him, is that what it is worth to him? Because what is worth to him and how much he's willing to pay might differ in some areas. Always keep in mind that you're not first creating technology for technology's sake. Try to solve a problem and then see how technology plays in. A way to document it. Hello, some new welcome guys. Hello, welcome to the webinar. Hello, Ninja. So we have here the business model canvas. It's a very simple 1 page. You can put it on 1 page. Ideally, you know to put it on 1 page, but maybe you bring it on 10 pages and slides, where you describe your business, where you describe the core, what is the value proposition, where you describe who you are, how you can deliver, what is so unique about you, then how you reach your customer, and in the end, how you make money. So, I mean, if you address remotely some of the questions on here, you're in a very good shape. And you have thought about it, and you will see that you have touched some of the main dimensions of what you're going to do. Now, of course, you cannot do all that in a short 2-day hackathon, but I guess the exercise is also to help to prioritize inside the team of what you do and what you don't do. You'll have to find ways of first forming your team and prioritizing and discussing, researching. So I'm sure it's going to be an exciting 36 hours or so to go through this. Are there any questions at this stage? Okay, let's move on. So just to drill a little bit deeper on business plan and what a business plan is like and what the key elements are. In the end, to build a profitable business, you have to consider what is profit. Profit is revenue minus cost. A technology company is very likely to have much higher cost than revenue at the beginning. That's why they need more than a loan. They need people who invest in them and their capabilities. But in the long run, it should be a profitable business. And you should think about how could that come about. Revenue constitutes of volume, for example, number of chip licenses, number of downloads, whatever, and the price. And on the other hand, you have cost to register your patent, to develop, to launch your product. You need personnel, and you also have variable costs, which the variable costs are there dependent on the number of services or products you're selling, whilst the fixed costs are there anyway. We'll keep these type of basic logics in mind so you don't go astray. In the next step, I'd like to introduce to you some of the common business frameworks that people are using to describe businesses. For example, it's the value chain of how does a raw product get to the customer and how is value added on every step, because everybody involved wants to earn some money. You might need to think about in a strategic decision, what is the environment around me like? What suppliers do I have? Who are my buyers? But also who is threatening me in my business and who could substitute me, or who am I trying to substitute? Further sophisticated on the right-hand side, where do you go in terms of markets and products? You probably start somewhere in your current market where you can do market development, but market penetration, but you can also go beyond that and develop new market, develop new products, or diversify your business. So if you have two wild ideas, think about how they fit together and in what type of box you're starting. And on the bottom right, a few basic catchwords of things that you might want to consider, the 3 C's, not to forget one, or to also analyze your own situation in terms of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Diving a bit deeper in one of them, taking an example, where is it? We have here the example of the LBS value chain. This is from the GSA Market Report. It shows which companies are active in location-based services. You see on the right-hand side the users, either mass market user, professional users, or users with special needs, what have you. You have a number of app stores who are selling the equipment, but behind there you've got app developers where you are likely to be somehow. You have some people providing services, connectivity and components and apps that you might need, devices, operating systems, and so forth. Yeah? So there are various of these supply chains available and ready and described in the GSA Market Report. You might want to apply this toolbox, maybe amend it a bit to the Indian context, because maybe there are some Indian providers in there which have not made it in. For instance, Oddo, a key supplier from India for mobile phones, seems not to be listed here. So think about how the supply chain and the value chain looks for you. Another angle, which is the Porter's 5 forces, built after Professor Porter, an American management guru. He took a simple cross diagram so that you don't forget anything and gives a bit of indication what should be put into describing your business and the dynamics in your business. So just a few examples here of what might be happening in your respective business. There might be, you need to think about where you get your software components, how the evolution is changing. Is there more automation happening? Are there ready-to-go bots creating some of the the algorithms that you use? Substitutes. Think about what are you substituting, or would you be substituted over time? Thinking about the market. Okay, you're building a Galileo solution. But thinking about how do other navigation systems play in? GPS, GLONASS, your local system in India, Navig. Are they adding something to the mix? And then on the right-hand side, think about, are you building a business-to-business activity or a B2C business? Is regulation in the way, or is regulation an enabler? Government regulation can be an enabler to build new businesses if something is being prescribed, but at the same time, it can also be a hindrance because you have to comply with certain standards, or you might only be able to serve a market because the regulation is very likely to be limited to a country or to a state or to a federation of countries. Another business concept is the marketing mix, the 4 Ps, so to speak, describing what is the product, what is the price, the place where you sell it, and what is the promotion. So this slide has been prepared, I think, 8 years ago, and you can see what old devices we have used at the time instead of the latest Xiaomi, iPhone, whatever. So when I first prepared parts of this lecture 8 years ago, this was one of the latest things on the market. And we described to the very alpine student group who was in the Alps in a GNSS summer school of how to think about it. For the workshop and for the hackathon, we're going to update this. Questions before I move to the last chapter?
No, all good.
All good, super. So I'd like to add a few tips of how to succeed and what questions to ask yourself in the preparation, but also during your coursework or during your interactive work in the team. And beyond the basics, think about what are the distinct functions. Where are you different from other competitors? I mean, building an app is an easy thing, relatively speaking, because it can be done within 24, 36 hours. But at the same time, you can easily be copied if you don't have anything differentiating. Or if you don't have the marketing dollars, rupees, to put behind to give it a high ranking so that people actually find it in the app stores. What is proprietary? What protects you? Do you have any patent, trademarks, a cool idea, or do you have any specific market access that others don't have, which can give you a bit of a leap over others? Look how it's positioned in the business. Are you just an app in an app store waiting to be bought? Or do you have to actively build your own market, driving it into the market? Assuming you're building a fitness tracker device for a certain portion of the population, that will not be sold through App Store. It might be sold online, but still thinking about what is the right channel. And think about who is going to be the customer. Who is going to be the first customer, even if it's $1 or a few thousand rupees to be paid for an app. What type of customer do you think will be using it? How can you describe him or her or the company? Beyond that, what are the benefits that you supply to the customer? How will it be sold? How will you make it? Yeah, can you do it by yourself? Do you need subcontractors? Do you need to hire people? Do you just take a ready-to-go product and white label product from somebody and put your brand on top of it? We don't know. Yeah. So business is manifold. Business is very diverse. So there's not one answer to the thing. But certainly, a hackathon, which is leading more, in most cases, to an app competition type of thing, takes away some of the headache, but since everybody is in there, the need to differentiate is even higher. Then look into your team by yourself also. Maybe you want to explain also a bit, what are your aspirations? Why are you doing it? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What do you see in your team? How complementary are you in the team? Also, when you present, maybe you have one guy who's great at presenting, but maybe you want to share the role somehow to see that it's not a one-man band or a one-woman band. So, but also explain what you think you still need to complement, because ultimately you're asking the jury to invest in you, to invest prize money in you, and to help you further in realizing it, or to just further your career by thereby enabling some education that you wanted to have. Yes, and if you're getting more ready and you're getting to forming a business, of course, at a later stage, you have to think about what type of funding is required for your business. Yeah. Okay, now, but keep in mind, everything starts with a great team. Is there anyone in the audience who knows what team this is? No? I'll give you a hint. So then you might recognize one or two faces in there. So, I mean, these guys were 11 founders of Microsoft in 40 years ago, and imagine what they have made out of it. So, I mean, they looked a bit freaky. They looked a bit, yeah. If you look at the picture in black and white, you can even be frightened of some of the characters on there. But definitely, people invested money in them because they had a great idea, and I think many of them became billionaires in the end. So I would like to encourage you to build a great team. Look at the diverse team also. You see here, there are women in there in this team. I think that's part of the strength, looking at having a diverse team that is complementary to one another. So that was the main part of my presentation. Now it's up to you to ask questions. I'm happy to jump back to slides, clarify things about the hackathon. Hello,
don't
India.
see questions so far. I think India is actively listening, but passively speaking, which is perfectly fine, of course.
Yes.
I do have a question in general. What would you say is the most which other technologies do you believe contribute to the creative solutions that are there on the satellite navigation market? Mm-hmm. We talk about Android, we talk about mobile phones, but there are many things happening all over the world. I think about artificial intelligence and other aspects. And I believe that our guests come from a variety of backgrounds. Which other technologies do you think will have an impact on that, or what could be used, or what is being combined?
Well, I mean, India has seen a great, and I'm focusing on India at the moment, yeah, because I think you have a huge domestic home market. You're thinking about export in other countries is certainly not wrong. But really, I think the challenge that you have started to overcome in India is connectivity. I mean, you built a great 4G network, which is reaching also villages and very tiny villages. But at the same time, it's probably still an expensive thing to have broadband connectivity. I don't know all the data. Think about what are the limitations and how quickly will the limitations be overcome. And build a business. Maybe you start with an SMS service and making sure the connectivity part is there. Then when it comes to positioning, navigation and timing. Think left and right. I mean, every smartphone is also using other sensors, gyrometers, gauges, Wi-Fi, and so forth. There's a term being used in navigation in PNT. It's called SLAM, simultaneous mapping and simultaneous use of various different sensors. And there, if you Google the word SLAM in the sense of navigation, you will see a lot more complementary technologies that are feeding in.
Great, thank you for this. Are there any other questions from participants? I think, yes.
I have one question. Michael, Rainer, you stressed upon development of apps. So I think if somebody uses small sensors and external processors like that for any application other than handsets, will that be welcome?
I think absolutely. I think if you want to build this, there you have to just think about what is think about carefully about the things that I was outlining. Think about the business aspects. Nobody is interested in you having the best and best performing sensor to start with. You need to know whom you're possibly selling it to. So you possibly the market report would help you to identify names of potential customers, business to business customers, or universities who would buy these sensors from you.
Right.
I think what I explained is applicable to all types of businesses. And it's very particularly meant for people who also build hardware and have hardware in mind. You have certainly a high hurdle to putting in business practice, but at least you've got possibly something tangible to say, to show, or to outline. But at the same time, you also need to be able to articulate in layman terms what your thing is doing. I wouldn't include in the presentation more than one technical graph because people will tune out, and you would have to be able to explain that graph to the jury that they don't feel like idiots because they don't understand what you're talking about. So you have to simplify the solution that you have and the problem that you have. Think about it as if you were to explain to your grandma of what you're trying to do, and I think then you've got the right level. You can always get into more detail and explain a formula when a question comes. Having a number of engineers presenting, I'm sure you're able to do that if the question comes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions? You can type them if you're too shy to speak. We have a Q&A button too. Everything is possible. In that case, I suggest that we do not spend more time pushing you to ask questions. We just remain at your availability in the next few days and weeks before the hackathon. If you have any questions, as Rainer says, good luck and have fun. That's always the most important thing. Never forget to enjoy what you are doing. We're going to spend time together for 2 days. It's going to be throughout the weekend. Of course, we'll work hard on the development of an application, but it's also very important that we enjoy our time together. Thanks a lot, Rainer, for your contribution here. I don't know if there are any closing remarks you would like to add.
No, I'm very intrigued. I'm very pleased to see the great interest for the Galileo Hackathon and also the partners that are joining. I mean, having done some of these things in Europe, but also in different formats, it's certainly an experiment for us, which for the first time in Asia. We're very pleased that we found a partner in Asia who wants to pilot this with us, with the PES University. I was there myself in December. We looked at the facilities, and I think it's very impressive. I think we're going to have a lot of fun, and I think it will be also to some extent an intercultural experience. So I would like to invite especially all the people from the various parts of India to use the time to interact with the people who are there. Maybe you find a company to work for in the future. Maybe you find inspiration of what to focus, how technically you want to work in the future, how much you feel comfortable thinking about business terms. I mean, look at it almost like a little mini MBA weekend where you are learning certain things that you don't necessarily learn every day back home in your university. So have fun. And and then one way, I mean, only how much you only get as much out of as much as you put in. Yeah. So if you prepare, if you are very active there, you will probably get the best complementary team members. You will be able to excite others. You'll get the attention of the mentors because they want to help you. If you're just waiting for them to tell you what to do, you're wrong. You probably go back home with a bit of enrichment, but if you really put effort into it, you get a lot out of it. So again, have fun and good luck and safe travels to Bangalore. Looking forward to seeing you all.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.